Hello. My name is Robert Voisey. I am the director of 15 Minutes of Fame, and we are proud to present the tenor saxophonist Drew Hosler for this 15 Minutes of Fame. 15 Minutes of Fame is 15 one-minute works that are written for a specific acoustic performer, in this case Drew, and they're all played by him in a single performance. Saxophonist and new music curator Drew Hosler is an advocate for contemporary music. He has commissioned and premiered over 100 pieces by award-winning composers from all over the world, including Andrew Mead, Alexis Bacon, Benjamin Attir, Jamie Lee Sampson, Gregory Wanamaker, Spencer Arias, and Marilyn Shrewd. His upcoming debut solo album, Delta Waves, featured 13 world premiere recordings of 21st century works for the tenor saxophone. For this album, he had been awarded grants from Excel Enterprise Fund and Arts Engine. His 2020 self-released EP, Home Will Carry Us, COVID-19, Music for Solo Tenor Saxophone, features 11 world premiere recordings from composers all over the world. It was featured on WSMR, Florida's classical musical station, Modern Notebook, hosted by Tyler Klein. Drew is an avid performer as a soloist. He was selected as a winner from the 51st Bowling Green State University Competition in Music Performance and has been awarded grants through the Mid-American Center for Contemporary Pro Music, among others. He's performed concerti by Walter Mays and William Albright with the Bowling Green Philharmonia and the Bowling Green State University Concert Band under the baton of Alexander. It's fantastic to have such a wonderful, great saxophonist play these 15 Minutes of Fame, all these one-minute works. What we did for 15 Minutes of Fame is we put out a call for scores, and we asked for composers to submit one-minute works and for Drew. And he received, if I remember correctly, over 90 submissions, of which he's picked 2 sets of 15 because he couldn't just play 15. And this will be the first set that we'll play. Now, I guess without too much ado, we should listen to some music. Let's listen to Drew play the first 5 of this set. And let's bring on Drew Hosler. Woo! Great start, Drew. That was awesome. I wanted to bring on the next composer. Brian Ellis is a Chinese American, New York City based Texan composer, web based, creative, and guitarist. His musical drive lies in using tools to realize his larger compositional vision. that technology should be used towards divesting musical agency from the composer to the environment, the performer, and ultimately the listener. Hi, Brian. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing great, thanks. How are y'all doing?
We're doing great. So why don't you tell us a little bit about this piece that we just performed of yours?
Absolutely. So the piece is titled San Music. San is the Chinese character for three. And the way it's written out is it's written with a kind of a medium length first line, a very short second line, and a long third line. That forms the basis for the graphic score that I presented to Drew, which he performs with three gnarly sounds. He performed them very well, very gnarly, and so a really wonderful performance.
Fabulous. And is this the first time you've heard your piece live?
Yes, this is the first performance of it, and so I'm very excited to see this world premiere. Absolutely.
And is this your first time that you've submitted to 15 Minutes of Fame?
This is, yes. I've played in a 15 Minutes of Fame concert before as part of a mandolin orchestra, but this is the first time that I've been a composer submitting to one. Yes.
Oh, well, so yeah, you see, you should have brought that up. I totally remember that. That was a great performance out in Houston, right?
Yes, yeah, in Texas.
So is that how you were introduced to this project?
So I actually found it through the composer site. Just looking through the pages of the different calls that were available. And when I saw Drew's name come up, I'd seen him before in some other contexts. He's very active on Facebook, posting a lot of his stuff. So I'd seen him there before. And when I saw his name on the composer site, I was like, yes, let's go write something for Drew.
Great. Wow. It's so awesome that you did. I'm so glad that we got to hear your piece. I thought it was wonderful.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm so glad to have been given this opportunity. And thank you for organizing this and pulling this all together.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And I wanted to bring on the next composer, Stanley Hoffman. He holds degrees in music composition from Brandeis University, New England Conservatory of Music, Boston Conservatory. His music is published by ECS Publishing, Oxford University Press, Fat Rock Incorporated, senior editor at the ECS Publishing Group in 1998 to 2021, and he's a freelance editor and composer. Hi, Stanley.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
All right, thank you. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. So, and Stanley, you are not a stranger to Vox Novus and our programs.
No, I'm not. The first one I've had a number of pieces performed over the years, and I'm very grateful for all the performances. I think the first one was Bruce and the clarinet solos, so years ago. So yeah.
So, and
Bruce Curlett, yeah, Bruce Curlett.
And what do you think about the 15 Minutes of Fame project and sort of like the 1 minute like sort of works?
I've always loved it, and I've always been partial to miniatures. I've loved miniatures for as long as I've been around concert music. So you look at someone like Chopin. I mean, his miniatures are really the pieces of his that are often held in highest regard. The shortest ones. Prelude in A, things like that. So
yeah, just because it's short, that doesn't mean it
isn't substantial. No, and in fact, shorter pieces have to be the most concentrated. Really, everything has to unfold very quickly, so that if it's any good, it has to really pack a wallop. Otherwise, it's just like, well, what was that?
And why don't you tell us a little bit about your miniature?
Okay, so Morning in Boston is a brief etude for multiple techniques: quarter tone bands, flutter tonguing, tremolando, and legato intervals. The music recalls the period between 1982 and 1984 when I lived in Jamaica Plain in Boston. And the calm sound of church bells is juxtaposed with contrastingly harsh city noises. So I owe a bit to that composer, the church bell tunes. I believe that may have been Handel. So,
I mean, it's a wonderful piece.
Thank you. And Drew played it beautifully, just like I envisioned it.
Meanwhile, talking about Drew, why don't we bring him on for another 5? Drew Hosler.
Art is dead.
Woo! Excellent. Well, I hope art isn't dead.
As do I.
Great set, Drew.
Thank you.
I wanted to. We're about to go through our third set here, and introduce Sebastian Zaczek. I'm sure I'm saying his name wrong, but he'll correct me. He's a 19-year-old composer and a computer science student from Germany, who's particularly interested in subjective perception of music. Hi, Sebastian. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
How do you pronounce your last name?
It's pronounced Zaczek. It's Polish thing. The Z is pronounced ch.
And so, are you mainly a composer, or?
I mean, I do study computer science, yeah, but whenever I'm not occupied with computer science stuff, I mainly do stuff with music. So, I guess it's a bit of a 50-50 thing.
I completely understand. A very, very long time ago, I was a computer science major, so I know what you're going through. Tell us a little bit about this piece that you wrote for Drew.
Yes, the piece is titled Warhol Variations 2.1, and the piece has a bit of a backstory. The title itself, Warhol Variations, has a bit of a backstory because way before this call for scores was even set up, I already had an idea to write a piece that was titled Warhol Variations. And the concept that I used in this particular piece is essentially the same that I've thought of about half a year before the call for scores was up. Though initially it was supposed to be a percussion piece. Things have changed. And when I came across this call for scores, seeing that it was titled 15 Minutes of Fame, and 15 Minutes of Fame obviously being a Warhol reference, as he said that in the future everybody will be famous for 15 minutes, I thought this is the perfect opportunity to write a piece titled Warhol Variations. I can't just let this opportunity fly. Unfortunately, the call wasn't for a percussionist, but for a tenor saxophonist. Fortunately, it was for a tenor saxophonist because I got to explore a bit of a new instrument for me. And it's number 2.1 because I wanted to keep the number 1 as the percussion piece. And initially I thought it'd be also nice to have a similar piece for soprano saxophone, which is still somewhat in the works, but that will be 2.2.
I completely
to be
understand.
released. Yeah.
And when you were envisioning the piece, did you think about the short time frame, or no, or was that part of the process?
I guess the short time frame was actually a bit of an extra restriction, because the initial thought, I mean, audience can't see the score, but the initial idea is essentially that there are different parameters in the music that sort of operate independently, and I initially had a much longer piece in mind, but I thought taking this idea and compressing it down to 1 minute sounds like a fun challenge, and yeah, I hope it worked well.
I loved it.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Great to hear.
hopefully we'll get a percussionist who will want to do a 15 Minutes of Fame, and then maybe you can write for that as well.
Well, the Warhol Variations number 1 is going to be a bit longer.
Okay.
I planned that one to be 4 or 5 minutes. We'll see.
And before we're going to play the next, the third set, and then we'll be finishing up with our last composer. And we could bring Drew back onto stage. Thank you, Drew.
This piece is a musical representation of the average amount of deaths, 107, and births, 255, occurring within 60 seconds in the year 2021. The metronome beats every time someone is born. The saxophonist plays a pitch every time someone dies. Ideally, this information is not shared with the audience until after the piece, and then the music should be performed a second time. So once again, this is the second time will be different.
Thank you, Drew.
Thank you.
And so I want to bring on the composer ETG. I'll read his notes. He says, "Who I am and how I became this composer are not important when judging the music. Only reading the score, attempting to play it, and perhaps listening to the audio." Hey, GG.
Yay. Am I in this? I thought I was the last one. Things have changed the ordering.
So tell me, why don't you think your bio is important when picking a piece?
Well, let's see. I haven't really decided. I just feel it's unimportant. It's like, why do you need to know who wrote it to listen to it? If you're going to listen to it, you listen to it. It's the sound is what that is. It's not about some bio. It's not about some, I remember a concert once where I put together program notes to be read, and I listed it in the front of the program notes what you should read while listening to the music, which is not the point. It's like, it's the music. You're supposed to be listening to the music.
Right. And I guess you feel the same way about program notes.
Yeah, I didn't really. There was some really wonderfully bizarre things in one of the online postings about the stuff where I think I'd written to you saying, if you want me to help you get together program notes, but that actually got posted as the program notes, which is pretty wonderful, actually. I got some good comments about that.
Yeah, I think the whole process of biographies and program notes can be a very precarious one for composers, and especially when you have 15 that are all there. let's just put it the way, there's a lot of anxiety, I think, built into writing compositions in general, and then when you have to sort of add like who you are and what you are and what's this piece about and how it's about, when really it is all about what you hear, right?
It's supposed to be, I guess. Kind of my attitude. Yeah. I mean, I won't go into the full extent of music doesn't have meaning. Music doesn't have unless there are lyrics, there's no text. That's a separate. If you want that hour-long conversation, we'll do that some other time. But,
And so you've written for this project a couple of times, right?
Well, there's another one coming up on the Anna Oxnay, I'll probably mispronounce that, flute piece next Friday. And I went back, and I think that very early electronic or audio piece that you, Peeboo, I think it was, that was on one of the things a long time ago. That was you, I thought, and I.
Are you talking about a 60 by 60?
I guess.
Yeah.
Am I screwing up the short pieces? And
this is sort of the acoustic spin-off of 60 by 60.
Okay. So
yeah. So you know what? We should just listen to your piece, shouldn't we?
That seems right. I mean, I'll talk forever though if you want.
We'll bring you on. We can talk forever after.
At the end. Yeah. Yes. Okay. Fine. So listen.
Let's bring on Drew. Hey. Excellent. And yeah, let's bring all the composers on. Stanley. There we go. How's
nice work, everyone.
Doing?
Yeah.
Nice work.
What'd you
nice
think?
Work,
you
everyone. Yeah.
It's incredible
Enjoyed
performances.
Drew is a opponent. Hey, Drew. Great performance, man.
Thank you all so much. Thank you all. Fantastic pieces.
And,
fantastic performances.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And before we launch into some big giant dialogue, I want to encourage everybody who's listening, if you have a question for any of the composers here or for Drew, please just put it into the chat, and we would love to answer your questions, respond to some of your feedback. Drew, I know you were concentrating on performing, but there's been a lot of accolades and applause for your playing. Thank you again.
Thank you, guys. And yes, thank you to everybody watching, all the comments. I'm reading through them right now. Thank you all so much.
So, Drew, let me ask you, what sort of brought you to 15 Minutes of Fame? Like, why do this project?
As a saxophonist, and I guess as a musician, the reason that I think I'm here is to help the tenor saxophone. The tenor saxophone, I feel like, is often just so overlooked. Like, not only in terms of just Western art music in general, but especially the saxophone. The tenor is always seen as like the little cousin to the alto and soprano. So I think a project like this really shows the diversity of music that can be written for the tenor saxophone. It can do a lot of things, and one thing I loved about not only this set, but the first set a couple of weeks ago, every piece is so incredibly different. There's everything from like incredibly super traditionally tonal to graphic scores by things like what Brian wrote. And I think that's so awesome just to show everything it can do. And I like short pieces. I really do. Like, a piece doesn't need to be an hour long. These minute-long pieces, one of the composers was saying, like, it's, you have to have, like, it in a contained envelope. Like, it has to have a beginning, middle, and end, even within a minute. And it's so cool how all these composers took that prompt of solo tenor saxophone for 1 minute and ran with it in such wildly different ways.
Sure, and so let's talk about that too. You didn't just pick 15.
Yes.
You picked 30. Why? Wow, that's double the work.
Yeah, I think, like you were saying in the beginning, we had 90-something submissions. I don't remember exactly how many. And I was going through, and I remember there was probably about 4 pages of submissions. And I got through the first page, and I'm like, I want to play all of these. So I knew that was going to be a problem going forward. But yeah, it was even hard to narrow it down to this 30. All of the pieces were so fantastic. Again, they were all just so different, and I loved getting so many composers that I knew personally before this. Some composers I'd worked with, some I'd not worked with, but I got to meet so many other composers who I've never had a chance to work with. So, yeah.
So, earlier I was talking with Sebastian, and he was talking about, how he had written this piece for percussion, and then sort of took that idea and wrote it for you. And it was longer for percussion. He was talking about, do you think these pieces could be expanded? Is that something that you think is a good idea, or would you welcome things like that?
I've never found a good way to word this. Like, I am the saxophonist. I'm not the one who actually writes the notes. So if the composer wants to expand it, I'm more than open to that. I'm actually one of the composers from the last set. I believe we're going to be expanding his piece, Tyler, who wrote a fantastic piece on the last set. He messaged me afterwards, and I think we're going to expand that into a larger work. No, I completely am open to the idea. I really hope that through this, I keep a relationship with a lot of these composers that want to be able to perform these pieces beyond just 15 minutes of fame, but I want these pieces to have longevity and actually have a lifetime. If the composer has more they want to say, then I welcome it. And
so let me just bounce that question out to the composers. Anybody who wants to start, would you? When you write a piece, is it solid? Is it like in stone, or you move on? Would you take your piece and make it bigger? Stanley, how about you?
Yeah, you see me reacting, huh? Yeah, no, and in fact, I thought about that a lot, and sometimes they just stay the way they are, and then other times a piece I've written that's short gnaws at me. The shortest piece I ever wrote was a call for scores for an 8-second piece for orchestra. I don't know if you remember this years ago. It was the Vine Orchestra. And so that got picked, right? So I took that and turned it into a 100-bar piece for 4 horns, okay? Because I liked the theme. So I took the theme and ran with it. So there you go. Yeah, you can do that.
So does anybody else have a comment on that? No? Yeah?
Mine's good. We'll just leave it as is.
Yeah, okay. What do you think, Sebastian?
Yeah, I was briefly mentioning that I'm doing this Vocal Versions 2.2 for soprano saxophone. It's a similar idea, but perhaps applied a bit differently. For me, it also kind of depends on the piece. Like, some pieces stay the way they are, some pieces are expanded. I remember last year I wrote a little viola piece, which initially was sort of partially improvisatory, where you had like a bunch of musical fragments scattered all over the page. And then, like, half a year later, I thought, let's put this into a fixed form. Like, I didn't really like the the idea of it being improvisatory, so I just took one way of interpreting this this material and smashed it into one piece, which happened to be a bit over 1 minute. And yeah, that turned out to be the final piece. But maybe I'll change it in the future, I don't know.
It's part of the purview of the composer, as Drew was mentioning.
I have a side question to, and you actually also. You're numbering your scores as if you were not a computer scientist. Why is it not 2.0 as the first one? Just curious, you know.
Could have been, yeah.
Yeah,
didn't think of that. Yeah, should have started with a 0, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's sort of an inside joke for the other three of us, I guess.
I have found there are a lot of composers who have once been computer scientists, if you want to call it that. I remember when I was in high school, that was one of the big things that they were, music and science, some being paired together. I don't know if that's completely true, but I have found that our communities are kind of linked. But you know what? Let's talk about art and graphics, Brian. Okay.
Yes.
And so you wrote a graphic score?
Yes, yeah. The score for the piece, I took an image of the Chinese calligraphy for the character San, and then as Drew knows, I went and annotated it with specific dynamic markings and some articulations, so that way as he's following through the gesture, you get both the gesture of like the brushstroke, forming these larger pictures, as well as mezzo forte, and some other kinds of more traditionally musical directions to accompany it.
Hey Drew, do you have like a picture of the score? And can wait, hold on 1 second. Hold on. There we go. Look at that.
You can see I have some stuff written above, some fingerings to remember.
And Drew, go ahead, Brian.
I was going to say, were those the different fingerings for the different gnarly sounds? Absolutely,
yes,
I loved
exactly.
It.
Yes, you gave a spot on the page before, but I put it right there, so I had them all.
That's good feedback. Thank you.
And so, Drew, let me ask you this: is when you approach, first of all, is that the first time you've seen a graphic score?
It is not. I've done quite a bit of it, especially with my New Music Ensemble Blank experiment. In the past, we've done quite a few graphic scores.
Do you approach graphic scores differently from traditional notation?
I think graphic scores lend themselves to more of a sense of improvisation. Like I have to I come up with some more ideas, and I'm allowed to express myself in different ways than notes being on a page. I mean, one that I like of the 90 or so submissions, I believe this was the only graphic score, which is it stood out to me so much when seeing it. Just you could write anything in the world, and one composer decided to do the graphic score, which is I thought was super interesting personally. But yeah, I don't know if that answers your question so much, but yeah, sure. I would approach it just from a more improvisatory way, just trying to come up with ideas beforehand as opposed to reading note by note.
Beforehand, you don't spontaneously improvise to a graphic score.
I would, with something like this, how Brian actually has it notated out is there's like A, B, and C.
Not that specific piece, but in general, if you were to look, go ahead.
Yeah, in general, I might, it may be more of a spontaneous spur of the moment sort of thing, but this is a bit more structured than a lot of graphic scores I've seen, with not only like a specific time limit, but also having specific noises. I don't remember exactly how you word it in the score.
I think gnarly sound was
yes, with having the three
the
different
verbiage I kept
sounds.
coming back to, yeah.
But no, when seeing like any other sort of graphic score, like what the Blank experiment did actually is we had high school students compose graphic scores after showing a couple examples of like some Cage graphic scores and things like that. And those were very much like they were thrown in front of our stand, and the three of us interpreted what we saw.
Nice, yeah.
And we got a big variety of things from just random pencil lines to pictures to Pretty sure we got a SpongeBob meme in there too. So, you know.
Did you
Art
do
is
multiple?
not dead.
Did you take multiple performances of those pieces for the guys, for the players? I mean, not for the player, for the composers.
Oh, for that, it was not for that project. They were not people who identified as composers. They were students in a couple different bands up in Michigan. And the first half of our presentation was more traditional, just playing down a couple of pieces. But then we were like, here's what a graphic score is. Get into groups with some of your friends and do something.
No, what I meant was, would you have the ensemble doing the improvising do multiple versions so that the composer would see that they really are not necessarily going to be the same, yet they're going to be the same, which is what I think of as graphics are about, yeah.
No, I think that would be very interesting. We were trying to do it in a very short time frame, you know,
of course.
45-minute class
60
period.
seconds, right? 60 seconds, I understand.
But no, like in a perfect world, I think something like that would be very nice. We had multiple instruments improvising on it as well.
It's one of the drawbacks of having recorded pieces of graphic scores is you only get one version usually.
Right.
Yes.
Has all the composers here written graphic scores before? I don't.
No.
Yeah.
Actually, Stanley, my submission to the Vine Orchestra was a graphic score.
Classic.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's an interesting phenomenon to sort of there's when you're writing a graphic score, obviously there's some interpretation. Well, I guess every score has interpretation, right? It's all just about the level of freedom that you're sort of giving to the musician,
and the number of pages of notes, you know.
Right.
I think your piece won having the most notes before.
Yeah, I've been told that way too many times. Yeah,
I'm trying to
35
remember exactly.
pages of
I didn't have quite 35. Let's see. There's
No, not for this one, but okay, probably 18 is the mass for like a 2-page piece. Yeah.
There's 5 for this one.
Yeah, right.
Okay, well that's great. Sorry, UTG, I gotta call you out on this. Your bio notes are very short, but your notes to the performer are very long.
The bio notes are about who cares, in my opinion, and the notes to the performer is that's part of the composition. I would like to get across that, like in the improv section, the top of page 2 there, Drew. That's that really dense but non-metrical. I had to say non-metrical because was very important. You know.
Yeah. No.
So,
but, I totally.
Yeah. So Drew, actually, if you could talk to us a little bit about that. I think what the audience is understanding is that there is a broad range of pieces that you receive. So like that's some composers have a light touch, and they've written their thing on the score, and that's that. And then you have very, let's say, extensive scores. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, of these, like they're with this set of 15, I think the longest one is like 3 pages of music. There was one 2 weeks ago that I believe was 4 pages, but I mean, there's everything from like ETG's piece is it's 2 pages of notes following the 5 or so pages of performance notes. And it's very like hyper notated out with tuplets all over the place, in addition to some more non-traditional notation, including just some like squiggly lines and biting reed with teeth while overblowing a high, ugly, honking sound.
I have to say, Drew, that I kind of miss the yodeling.
The yodeling. And that was something else I have never seen before. So, yeah. I mean, comparing that to something more like Stanley's piece, which, though it has some quarter tones and tremolos in it, is quarter notes, eighth notes, 1 page. It's just very, very different interpretations of the same prompt. And both are quite effective.
Nice piece, though, Stanley. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. yours as well.
They were all great. I mean, I hope nobody's taking offense to sort of poking fun at our techniques. We're all very different composers, and I think
No.
that was one of the things when I was doing 60 by 60 and 15 Minutes of Fame and so forth, was to invite any and everyone to sort of write anything that they feel motivated for, and however they wanted to feel motivated for, and and to show audiences sort of the big wide universe of stuff that's out there. And Drew, thank you for being open and accepting to all that. I mean, anyway, you've done a great job.
Of course,
Yes.
thank you, and thanks to all the composers. Like, I think, and another thing, when we were trying to think of like a program order, we kept it in mostly alphabetical order, how it is on 15 Minutes of Fame website. And I wanted to do that because I could have put together the more traditional tonal ones and then put some of the more atonal ones next to each other. But I wanted it to go very quickly from one to the next to show all of that difference in a very short period of time. So
Good
I
program.
hope that
Good.
was effective.
I think it was good. Well, if does anybody have anything they want to say or comment on?
I'd love to ask Drew, what was the process like, learning 30 pieces in such a, was it in a short frame of time, or did you, really have a lot of time to go through and, get to know each one really intimately?
Of course, I always want more time. And of course, I always need more time with these pieces. I'm hoping in the future to program a lot of these pieces. Something else I love about 1 minute pieces, if I ever have a recital, I throw on 4 or 5 1 minute pieces. That doesn't hurt anything. Like, and I love having that option, and for other people as well, like having that ability to throw on a 1 minute piece so you can have something very, very different. I love that. But to answer more of your question, I would love more time with all of these. I felt like with a lot of the, I tried knocking them out one at a time, like sitting down with one, really, really getting comfortable with that one before moving on to the next, but always keeping the earlier ones under my fingers. So it was kind of a step-by-step process to get all of them, because they're all so different as well. So just quickly jumping from one to the next, that was something else that I tried to do in my practicing, not taking super long breaks so I can try and get through everything. See how my read handles it, see how I handle it.
Well, sounds like you have a great system worked out, because the performance was incredible. So
Thank you so much. That means so much.
Well, with that said, I want to thank you all again, and we'll see you on the next 15 Minutes of Fame.
Yes. Thank you all so much.
Thank
Thanks
you.
to everyone in the chat, all the composers and everyone else there. Thank you all so much.
Take care.
And I also want to thank Virtual Concert Halls for helping and presenting 15 Minutes of Fame and our programs here on Vox Novus. They are a fabulous team that helps us put on these shows. There's always there's a performer on stage, all the composers writing, and then there's everybody that's working behind with me. There's a few of the names there.